The night Moscow's war planners started telling themselves Ukraine was running out of friends, a quiet country at the edge of the Arctic did something that rattled every map table. Norway, stoic, pragmatic, allergic to drama, announced a plan for 2026 so big it doesn't just refill Ukraine's ammo lockers. It rewires the pipeline that gets weapons to the front. $7 billion, not as a one-off care package, but as fuel for factories, standards, and a production ecosystem built on Ukrainian soil. It sounds simple, make the weapons where the war is, but the battlefield consequence is enormous. A supply chain Russia can't hold at customs or bomb at the Polish border. The plan came into focus in early November, when Ukrainian leaders visited Norway and both sides signed a memorandum to unify quality standards for gear built under joint agreements. Aid became architecture, money became machinery, and a promise turned into a production line. To understand why that shakes the ground, rewind to the war's first years. Every missile had a passport. Every howitzer rode a bureaucratic ferry. Ukraine's gunners learned to mate NATO-standard 155mm shells with a zoo of artillery pieces in a logistics dance no choreographer asked for. Allies helped, often heroically, but distance, customs, and stockpile politics burned precious months. Enter Bodo, inside the Arctic Circle, where the UK-led Joint Expeditionary Force met in November and gave Ukraine an enhanced partner seat at the planning table. In plain English, Europe's Northern Security Network just stapled Ukraine into its playbook for the High North and the Baltic. That change isn't a headline, it's a habit forming. Exercises, planning cycles, and response options now include Ukraine by default. It's not NATO membership, but it's a lot closer to "we plan together" than "we'll call you after." Behind Norway's big number sits an unsexy, game-winning idea with a nickname that sounds like a furniture catalog, the Danish Model. Born in 2024 to 2025, it flips support from gifting gear to financing Ukrainian firms directly to build exactly what the front needs, at the speeds the front demands. No warehouse bottlenecks, fewer training mismatches, and far faster fielding. Its already boosted output of homegrown systems like the two S-22 Bodana 155mm howitzer from a handful per month in 2023 to a steady drumbeat in 2025 by aligning Allied money with Ukrainian assembly lines. The model's killer feature isn't romance, it's rhythm. Ukraine tells partners what it needs, partners fund Ukrainian producers, and units get kit that's designed for their doctrine and terrain. Norway's $7 billion snaps perfectly into that groove, supercharging a system that has proven it can turn euros into barrel heat faster than any Brussels communique. If the headline is cash, the subhead is standardization. The fresh memorandum on quality standards looks bureaucratic until you picture a platoon swapping a widget in the dark and the replacement actually fits. Standards are uptime. Standards are survival. They also enable dispersion. Dozens of small facilities making components to common specs with redundant tooling and shared tolerances. That turns Russia's cruise missiles into very expensive hammers chasing very nimble moles. It's one thing to crater a roof, it's another to crater a standard. The Norwegian approach accepts the reality of Russian strikes and designs around them, spreading risk and accelerating repair. That's not glamorous, it's victory math. Look where the money meets the machines. Kongsberg Defense and Aerospace announced agreements to develop low-cost, high-volume air defense missiles and uncrewed surface vessels in Ukraine, anchoring a Kyiv office and pointing toward a future where NASAMS launchers can fire a wider mix of interceptors, including designs adapted or co-produced with Ukrainian partners. Naval applications matter doubly. The Black Sea campaign has proven that a fast, lethal, cheap boat with a good brain can make a frigate sweat. Meanwhile, Norway has been explicit about pushing uncrewed maritime production into Ukraine itself, using coalition funds to scale what works at sea. Add it up and you get this picture. Norwegian tech, Ukrainian ingenuity, and a production address Russia can't embargo. Ammunition is the heart rate. Here, Norway has an ace named Nammo. Over the past 2 years, Nammo has expanded lines for 155mm shells, 120mm tank rounds, and solid rocket motors that feed interceptors like AMRAAM, the same family used in NASAMS batteries that protect Ukrainian cities. Oslo even greenlit Ukrainian production using Norwegian-developed artillery designs, an unusual but telling step for a country famous for sober risk management. The message, don't just ship shells, move the know-how. In war, the most strategic asset isn't steel, it's the license to make steel behave. And because every good war economy needs a garage, Norway and Ukraine launched Brave Norway, a €20 million innovation fund focused on drones, AI-enabled sensing, and rapid field trials inside Ukraine. Seed the tinkerers, then scale the winners into formal procurement. It's Silicon Valley logic with blast doors, and it pairs perfectly with the big-ticket factory money. Drones are the clearest example. Ukraine's front lines iterate like a software company, pushing version numbers to the trenches in weeks. A tweak to antennas here, a new warhead geometry there, and suddenly a Russian jammer that worked last month is fishing for ghosts. The fund makes those tweaks predictable, not lucky. If you're wondering how this plugs into the wider alliance machinery, meet PURL, the Prioritized Ukraine Requirements List. Think of it as NATO's express lane for big-ticket gear from US and European lines, using allied money, sometimes pooled, to secure high-priority items without months of committee theater. It has started moving Patriot and HIMARS munitions and other essentials through a channel designed for urgency, not nostalgia. Critics note aid dips over the summer and political mood swings. That's why PURL exists, to smooth the sine waves of domestic politics into a straight line for soldiers who don't get to pause the war for a budget debate. Norway's plan doesn't replace PURL, it complements it by adding local muscle where transatlantic pipes are thin. One is a shopping list, the other is a factory map. Ukraine needs both. The Bodo meeting wasn't just a photo op in polar light. The UK announced the enhanced GF-Ukraine partnership as the bloc wrapped up its largest activity, Terrasis, and began planning new exercises tailored to the High North and Baltic deterrence mission. That means Ukrainian officers sitting in rooms where Arctic patrols, Baltic air policing, and sea lane protection are planned. Rooms that used to be closed. Once you start planning together, you make different choices about what to build, where to store it, and who trains with whom. In geopolitics, geography is destiny. In logistics, geography is a spreadsheet. Bodo put Ukraine in the spreadsheet. By the way, if you appreciate having this kind of layered view instead of just a 30-second clip on social media, this is your moment to help push back against the algorithm. Drop a like, leave a comment with what you want us to dissect next, and it genuinely tells YouTube that people still care about serious coverage of this war. Let's put a human face on the macroeconomics. A Ukrainian welder working on a missile tube in Dnipro earns wages that pay taxes in Ukraine, not in a distant supplier state. A small plant in Khmelnytsky making fuse components buys copper and epoxy from local vendors who then hire drivers, who then buy fuel, and, because war is brutal but life goes on, someone's kid gets new football cleats. Wars end, neighbors don't. The day after a ceasefire, Europe will want a Ukraine whose defense industry plugs into JEF, NATO procurement, and EU supply chains without starting from scratch. Norway is betting that tomorrow's peace is built by today's factories. Call it nation building with torque wrenches. There are skeptics, and they ask smart questions. Can you really build at scale inside a country Russia is trying to bomb flat? Yes, if you design for dispersion, standardization, and repairability. Can you protect industrial nodes from missiles and drones? Layered air defense around key sites isn't optional. It's the down payment. Will cyber attacks and disinformation try to spoil the party? Automatically. That's why program governance matters. Hard audits, digital hygiene, and transparent community benefits that drown out the inevitable noise. If a mayor can show how a drone assembly line helped patch the school roof after a strike, it's harder for a troll farm to call the factory foreign exploitation. And for the record, Norway has a black belt in turning resource revenue into public goods. That institutional muscle travels well. Zoom down to the workshop level, where advantages get earned. A domestic drone builder hears from a frontline unit that a specific jammer fries their FPV links. The builder prototypes a ferrite choke tweak on Tuesday, tests Wednesday, starts a batch Thursday, and by next week, version 2.3.1 is in the hands of the platoon that requested it. That loop kills myths about wonder weapons because it replaces them with iteration. It also produces gallows humor. Somewhere a tech scribbles borscht hotfix on a crate. War is cruel. Solved problems deserve small jokes. Zoom back out to the ocean. Norway co-leads the Maritime Capability Coalition, funneling funds and kit into a Ukrainian navy that has learned to fight with autonomy, sea drones, and coastal defense systems. The Black Sea blockade didn't end because a treaty got cut. It loosened because a swarm of cheap boats and clever missiles turned Russian hulls into insurance risks. Now imagine that swarm's batteries, sensors, and hulls getting built in Mykolaiv or Odessa, patched locally, and relaunched without waiting on a truck from across the continent. Maritime warfare is suddenly less about tonnage and more about iteration speed. That should make admirals everywhere drink their coffee a little faster. Industry names matter because they anchor abstract policy in steel and silicon. Kongsberg is opening doors in Kyiv and discussing a Ukraine-made missile for NASAMS, expanding an air defense ecosystem that's already saved thousands of lives. Nammo's production contracts ripple across Scandinavia and into Ukraine, where licensed artillery lines are stepping out of the shadows. Denmark is restarting ammo production on home turf with Nammo's help, and the Nordics are synchronizing capacity in a way that would have felt like science fiction 5 years ago. We often talk about European rearmament as if it's a speech. In reality, it's purchase orders and machine tools. Less Churchill, more forklift. There's also the politics of confidence. Norway's government has telegraphed that 2026 support will remain at extraordinary levels across military and civilian lines, stabilizing Ukraine's fiscal planning while weapons lines spin up. Aid dipped this summer. The Keel tracker showed a lull even as PURL accelerated. That's normal in democracies. Budgets breathe. The trick is designing mechanisms that keep soldiers from feeling those breaths as gasps. Oslo's decision is a bet on predictability over heroics. Or, to put it in Nordic, not flashy, very useful. Let's be blunt about timelines. You don't put $7 billion in a vending machine and press victory. You set up jigs, train welders, validate tolerances, and certify lots that survive rain, dust, and enemy EW. The Danish model provides head starts, templates, contracts, oversight frameworks that turn months into weeks. Kongsberg's Ukraine office shortens the hallway between engineers and end users. Brave Norway gets the garage builders onto rails. PURL buys time at altitude by keeping Patriot and HIMARS stocks healthy while domestic lines spin up. If strategy had a metronome, it would tick like this. Near-term interceptors from transatlantic lines, mid-term drones and shells from Ukrainian plants, long-term joint ventures that turn a wartime surge into a peacetime industrial base. The battlefield implications are specific. Shorter supply lines raise readiness rates. Local repair cuts the half-life of damage. Standardized parts mean fewer Frankenstein fixes at 2 a.m. Training costs drop because interfaces match muscle memory. Doctrine aligns with what factories can actually deliver, and commanders stop planning around shipping forecasts and start planning around production rhythms. That's the difference between hoping a convoy arrives and knowing a batch will roll out on Friday. The first is a wish, the second is a schedule. Deterrence is the quiet twin of logistics. Up north, Norway stares across the Barents at the Kola Peninsula and invests in submarines, frigates, and sonar because steel hulls and quiet oceans write their own dialect of power. Down south, Ukraine stares at occupied coastlines and turns sea drones into verbs. Link the theaters, high north to Black Sea, and you deny Russia freedom to transfer pressure from one flank to the other. Think of Europe fitting Russia with noise-canceling headphones. Every time Moscow turns up the volume in one theater, the other keeps humming. Yes, politics in allied capitals will ebb and flow. Elections, budget nights, and talk shows haven't fought a trench line since 1945, but Norway's move reframes the debate. Don't just argue about sending more, decide to build more, where it counts. And because industrial policy is harder to unwind than a press release, it inoculates support against mood swings. A factory is a fact on the ground. A headline is air. There's a lesson here for anyone still waiting for a miracle program. The harsh truth is that Ukraine doesn't need magic. It needs metronomes. It needs receipts. It needs a continent that understands the front not as a charity case but as a production plan. The good news is that Europe is learning. The UK guides JEF, Denmark prototypes the funding model. Sweden adds teeth and industrial discipline. Germany opens its checkbook and its armories. Norway, quietly, insistently, ties it together with factories, standards, and Arctic steel. 3 quick myths to retire before we land. First, that local production risks escalation. Russia is already escalating with glide bombs and missiles. Moving a drone factory 30 minutes from a launch strip isn't escalation, it's efficiency. Second, that Ukraine can't protect factories. Air defense is imperfect but improving, and dispersion beats accuracy every day of the week, ending in Y. Third, that this is all too slow. Compared to what? Waiting for an old ammo plant in a different country to retool while a brigade runs dry. Speed is relative, and the relative speed of a workshop in Kharkiv responding to a Kharkiv brigade. If you want a glimpse of the endgame, imagine the ceasefire line, not as a place where production stops, but where it settles into long-term integration. Ukrainian plants licensed to crank out NATO standard shells, interceptors, and drones. Joint ventures feeding both Ukraine's needs and allied restocking. JEF exercises that treat Odessa like a normal port of call. PURL evolving from emergency procurement into a shared planning tool. And a Russia that looks west and sees not a gap between allies, but a wall of interoperability held together by something stronger than speeches: the habit of building together. So let's land this. Norway's $7 billion plan for 2026 is not a magic wand, it's a metronome. It keeps time while Ukraine composes the hard music of counter-battery duels, layered air defense, and long-range interdiction. It anchors factories, standards, and partnerships that outlive elections and winters. It signals to Moscow that the coalition's patience isn't a headline, it's a budget line. It tells Ukrainian workers their skills are as strategic as any brigade. And it reminds us that in modern war, the most lethal weapon is often a receipt, because somewhere in a Ukrainian workshop, a line just started, because somewhere in Bodo, a map just got brighter, and because, for all the acronyms and memoranda, the heart of this plan is brutally simple. Build what works, where it counts, until the shooting stops. Then keep building so it doesn't start again. If a small Arctic nation can rewrite the way a European war is supplied, what's everyone else's excuse for inertia? The front doesn't need miracles, it needs schedules, and a continent willing to honor them. And one last note for the war nerds at the back. When Kongsberg starts talk of Ukrainian-made NASAMS interceptors, when Nammo licenses artillery lines on Ukrainian soil, when brave Norway funds the next batch of drone brains, and when PURL moves a pallet of Patriot missiles while a Mykolaiv shop mills a new prop for a sea drone, that's not 4 stories. It's one. It's the story of a supply chain that learned to fight back. It's how you turn a front line into a factory floor with a view. And yes, somewhere in that factory there's a coffee pot so strong it probably qualifies as an air defense asset. But that's Norway for you. Quiet humor, serious engineering, and a plan that might just buy Ukraine the most precious commodity on the battlefield: time.